Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our last Esri Emergency Management Webinar of the year, 3 Keys to Thriving in the Next Crisis. And really what we're going to be talking about today is ArcGIS technology updates that apply to emergency management. Well, I'm Jeff Perani. I'm on our public safety team, a solution engineer, and with me today is John Petter, also a solution engineer on the public safety team. Before we jump in, I just wanted to take a moment and say, it's certainly been a crazy year, but I just wanted to say great work by everyone. We've witnessed a lot of great work kind of across the user community with not only the response to COVID-19, but all the disasters that we've, faced, through the year. So we've really been impressed and inspired by the work of the user community. We hope, towards the end of this year that things, certainly calm down and you have a chance to rest, and as well as, reflect on your lessons learned and what worked well and what didn't, and how you might work to get ready for next year. And I think you're super excited to be able to share with you some technology updates that we think could really help you in your work. Perhaps find new ways of doing things, finding ways that new tools can be employed to support your mission needs. So today we're going to be focusing on 3 key updates, as is in the title. We'll be talking about Hub, Survey123, and Experience Builder. And we're just going to kind of stick to these 3, but we just also wanted to convey that there's so many other technology updates that we couldn't cover today. Whether it's on enhancements in online or pro or enterprise, certainly with notebooks and arcade and velocity. Field maps, kind of coming on the horizon. There's certainly a lot of, technology components that are very, very exciting. Also, towards the end, we'll be sharing some details on some, training resources. There's a lot of great content available at Esri's user conference this year, and perhaps some, plenty of resources to help keep you occupied, during quarantine. Some great materials, and we'll share that with you today. And we'll have a few minutes at the end for some question and answers. So with that, a couple of additional housekeeping notes. Please use the chat to ask questions. Either John or I will try and get back to and answer as many questions as possible that come through the chat. And if we don't get to those questions, we'll follow up after the webinar. Also today, I wanted to highlight that we've got a handout in the handout section of GoToMeeting. I'll be sharing with you a bunch of links, in the slides, but don't fret. Those links are all in the handout that you have access to, and we'll also share with you the slides as well as the recording of this webinar, in a couple days, after the event. So don't fret about, not being able to write down all the links. We'll certainly, provide those to you now through the handouts in the folder, or excuse me, in the handout section, as well as the slides. So, jumping right in here, first we want to talk about, Hub. So obviously with COVID-19, we saw many Hub sites stood up through the course of the response to COVID-19, from Sacramento to Somalia, kind of really across the globe. We saw many different, Hub sites, and a lot of great, work done by the user community, and a lot of great, lessons learned about how these, can be applied. So, that's one, the first section that we wanted to provide some, updates with and thoughts to you, today. So, we. Certainly a lot to cover, but there's 3 key things that we wanted to kind of focus on, here this morning. One is really to kind of think about how can you put your apps and data in context. And for me, that's really the key thing about, using Hub. And like I said, we've seen many great, examples from the COVID-19 response, many incident-specific sites that we've seen through the course of the year, and even unique uses, especially from an emergency management perspective, like sharing your hazard mitigation plans. Through Hub as a delivery mechanism to engage the public and your stakeholders. Another key way to think about using Hub is really to engage with a broader audience. And one really kind of trend that we've seen is using, the community org that comes with Hub Premium to enable, ArcGIS capabilities and to a broader, audience. And then finally, some new things, including, sharing a mix of both public and private content, in a view. So the first concept that we wanted to kind of talk about is really about, repurposing what you already have, the existing, apps and data and the like that you have within your organization. How can you, kind of put these together and organize them in a way that really kind of conveys in kind of a single, destination, either from a, program perspective or from an initiative perspective, or even from your executives to kind of pull, all of this, information together and really kind of give it context. So another way to kind of think about that is, using Hub to really, bridge the gap. Bridge the gap, in other words, from, existing, kind of official sites of information, if you will, and the ability to, connect that to your existing data and apps and maps that you have, through ArcGIS Online or Enterprise, and really using then Hub, as a way to, again, bring all that together and really kind of tell a guided story in a way to share, all of that, information. So I think, in my mind, this was a really helpful kind of construct to think about, okay, what are some ways that we can be creative about using Hub to meet some of our mission needs? Now, there's several different flavors, of Hub. So certainly Hub, the Hub Basic license comes with, all of ArcGIS Online. So Hub Basics included with everything, and there's a ton of functionality through sites and pages and the elements that you can, add to your existing Hub site. From the Hub Premium perspective, the real thing that we wanted to focus on here was the community org that comes along with it. And we'll talk about why that's important, here kind of in the next slide. But I wanted to highlight, kind of from a, moving up here, the Hub Premium license comes with this community org that allows you to empower others outside your organization with the power, of ArcGIS. And then finally, just a note here that on the enterprise side, you can do many of those same types of, sites and pages, and in your enterprise environment and the environment that you can control and manage, on your own side. So one, kind of concept that I really wanted to get across here is how multi-agency collaboration could be facilitated, both in Hub and ArcGIS Online, and that's really done through ArcGIS Online, group membership. So, as this builds out here, normally with an existing, ArcGIS Online organization subscription, you have built-in users, either through the built-in users or enterprise logins through SAML that have access, and you can control the access to their content for everyone that's inside your organization. But from a multi-agency perspective, we can really facilitate information sharing through, giving access to a common set of groups and really letting other, folks have views into this by, what I like to think of as, kind of bring your own identity, right? Using the credentials from your existing org in that, kind of common group to facilitate, secure information sharing. And the last thing that I wanted to mention here is kind of for the have-nots, for the folks that don't have, existing ArcGIS Online credentials. We've seen many agencies, leverage, Hub Premium and the community org that's provided there to engage a broader set of stakeholders to facilitate, multi-agency collaboration. So, for example, if there's a volunteer in an organization that you want to be a part of your work, you can give them an account through Hub Premium, or if there's, others that may not have access to Esri technology at the moment, that's a great way to bring them into the fold to help, kind of complete the work for your initiatives, both, in blue sky and gray sky days. So we certainly just wanted to share with you that that's, kind of a common trend that we've seen, and just give you some ideas to kind of think about in ways of using Hub in your kind of continued work. So next, I just want to show a couple of quick, demonstrations as a part of that. So first, I wanted to highlight that we have, the solutions team has provided, and I think this was back in May, a new solution template initiative for, emergency response. So right now, this works with, Hub Premium, but you can see, a lot of the elements that you can build out with your Hub Basic license, even the, some of the statistics cards, and embed a live interactive map, link to other, apps and content like, shelters, connect to other initiatives like, volunteering to help, bringing in, social media. And then the part where the Hub Premium part comes in is if you're giving, credentials to others to either report damage or clean up, debris and the like, that's where this can really kind of come into play. So in this next example, I want to show you how I've kind of configured this for a scenario, right? So, thinking about the flooding that happened in Boulder back in, 2013, what might, a hub site look like, kind of configured for that event. Obviously there's some real data in here, now with the fires here recently for air quality alerts and red flag warnings, configured, to kind of meet the needs with, local social media elements and the like. One of the things that we wanted to kind of highlight that's new here as a part of all of this is in a recent release of Hub, there's an additional set of functionality to allow a particular row to be limited in visibility. So for example, this particular row is only available to operations staff. I've managed that access through selecting the operations staff group here. So that what that means is I visit this Hub page, if I'm not a member of that operations staff group, I won't see that content. The same applies for thinking about having a group for external stakeholders. Again, we can limit the view for this particular group to members for this external stakeholders group. And as we showed in that last slide, this can be either from your organization or through other organizations where you invite specific users into that group so they're able to see and view content. Another recent addition is the addition of people cards. These have been added here so we can see the recent content. So for some of the featured people on our organization, like John or Kevin, and we can certainly add in others, and that will take you to their profile page where you can kind of see some more elements there. So we just wanted to kind of highlight some recent updates in some of the Hub use. One last thing to highlight here from a development perspective is that especially as we're thinking of configuring mobile first applications for folks these days, we wanted to highlight that the new iframe card allows you to have a mobile URL for your iframe or kind of a desktop view of the iframe. And in fact, you can even choose to hide the apps in a mobile experience if you have a big dashboard that won't kind of fold out well. So again, some kind of key recent updates that we wanted to highlight here with the recent Hub release. So again, I think that idea of having rows that are specific to a particular user instead of groups are really helpful. So now, for example, if I sign out here really quick and then sign back in with the different credentials, in this case with my enterprise credentials, now if I scroll down to that section of the Hub, you'll see that those rows are not visible to me because I don't have permissions to see them. So again, just a couple of quick updates to share with you from the Hub side for things to consider as you're building out your applications. So a couple last things before I turn it over to John is I want to share with you some other great recent examples from the user community. So a shout out to State of Utah and Josh and the team there and their work for a recent high wind event that they had in Utah. Sharing kind of where they are with the public assistance process, and again putting the apps and data in context and giving folks the ability to report where they've seen damage in their community. In this case, linking out to Survey123 forum. So I thought this was a really great use of Hub in action and putting data and apps in context for real events here from Utah. Next, looking at the great work that the FEMA team's done over this course of this year. First with the COVID Hub, and now with the geospatial resources disaster types like hurricanes, and kind of building on top of the statistics cards and taking that even further with having focused dashboards embedded inside the Hub page here. I think just kind of taking that a step further, and then linking out to filtered galleries to see more details beyond just the resources that are highlighted. And then finally, what I thought was a really unique use was leveraging Hub here as County of Monterey has done for their hazard mitigation plan, and using this as a destination for the public and their stakeholders to see elements about the updates of the plan as it's in process. So I thought thought this was just a really kind of inspirational use of the technology and new ways, and wanted to share with this example with you to give you some ideas on how you may be able to use this within your own jurisdiction. So as I mentioned, there's a ton of great resources at the user conference that were shared on Hub, more focused details on best practices from a public safety perspective, product teams and other stories from other areas. And then there's just a great set of additional resources like a learn path inside the Esri training environment, additional user examples to help you find your hub inspiration. So with that concludes the kind of first section of the updates that we wanted to share with you today. And next, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, John Petter, who's going to share with you some updates on the Survey123 side. So with that, take it away, John.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jeff. So that was really good. I've seen a lot of great examples of Hub myself this year, and I'm finding it a really good tool to present your data. We're going to do a bit of a dive now into the new release of Survey123. The functionality I'm going to show you today, you must have release 3.10 or newer. 3.11 just came out, but this is a 3.10, and there's some pretty amazing functionality in here. It was around in beta for quite a while, but now it's actually released, and I can show it to you. So I've got just the Windows version of Survey123 installed here, and I've downloaded this survey to show you. You can see I've already been busy collecting a few surveys right here for different locations. Let's go ahead and just collect a new survey. So in this example, I'm using a really simplified schema for a damage assessment. The object of this particular session isn't to build out a schema like a FEMA PDA or something like that. It's just to show some specific functionality. So you can see I've got street address, city, zip code, type of home, owner, this sort of thing in here, some estimated structure damage. And as a field collector, while you go in and put your team in, filling out all this information can be tedious or even pretty impossible. If you're doing assessments in a fire area that's been completely burned to the ground, how do you understand what the street address is? There's no address anymore on that structure. So one of the new things we've got here is when I click onto the map, first this is just going to locate me at my house, but I'll zoom to an area of interest where we're going to be doing some collections. Here's the big takeaway here. This used to just be a Survey123 base map. Now it's an actual web map from my organization. So I've got a web map here published with all of the parcels for this particular area. You'll also notice a lot of dots on this map. What are those? Those dots are from other people collecting the surveys, and I'm actually seeing them on the map. Where have they surveyed? So let's zoom in a little bit. As I zoom in, the labels are turning on all of these parcels. The labels are turning on all the collections. I can see who has collected these particular data collections, and if I'm in the field, I know which ones have and haven't been done. So let's collect one right at the end of this cul-de-sac. I'll just put my mouse on it. Obviously, if you're a field person and you've got this on your app in the field, on your mobile device, it's going to use the locate me now, and it'll drop you really close to that area, just a very small margin of error on your mobile device. But then they can just click in here and actually select it. Notice that I've got USNG at the bottom, so we're not showing that long. That's been configured in here as well. When I hit collect, it magically filled in all of the information from that address point. That is all pulled from the parcel. So we're actually using some functionality in a JavaScript in the background that is doing a point in polygon intersection. So we're doing an actual spatial join in there and pulling the resulting information back. That's just increased the accuracy of the survey and the speed of collection. I've got the type of home, who owns it, and now I've got the building value from that parcel. So if I look at the extent of damage, let's say this one was majorly affected. We're doing a calculation, just 50%. If it was minor, we can do a quarter, whatever the business logic is that you need to do to put in there. So we'll just leave this and collect that one. I will send that in right now. Now, if I go and collect another point, and we'll just do the same process. As I zoom over to that area, you'll notice in that cul-de-sac that we just collected, my point is stamped in there with a label of the team name that's collected it. So in the field, I now know to move to the next one. And if there was a team of people and we were hopscotching down different, or frog leaping along different properties, I could see that this one was done and I might need to move to the next one. So just the idea of having a live web map now in Survey123 is pretty groundbreaking for me. Just so much functionality, so much we can do with this. So this is just a very simple schema to get there. And I will just submit one more survey and then sort of show you the next piece of this. So great, I'm in the field, I'm collecting all this data. Let's take a look at how we might display it. So here's a simple dashboard, and you can see that collection that I just did at the end of that cul-de-sac is right in here. And it's got all of the information on that particular collection. And I left all the parcel information in this pop-up purposely. Obviously, you would configure the pop-up a little nicer than this, but it just shows you all of the information that's available in this particular parcel. And you could pull any or all of this data into your survey or through that JavaScript use. So the dashboard is just configured to show how many parcels are in this map extent, how many collections have been done, the percentage completed, and the approximate damage. So we're just doing an approximation in here, just the medium damaged or destroyed. And we've got a few other factors in here, like the damage severity, how many by dollar value, and then a list of all the different ones. So something I'm asked a lot is, great, we've got a damage assessment for a property. I need to print that out. I need a report for that one. So what I've done, I've been a little sneaky here, is I've used the data tab from Survey123, and there's actually an embed functionality which removes all of the header across the top. So if I just look at the regular data tab for this survey, it would look something like this. Big green header across the top. I could obviously take this URL and put that to my dashboard. But if you just do a question mark, embed equals true at the top, and we'll share all these links at the end of the webinar, I can now have these in this view embedded in my dashboard. So it looks like a single application. On the right, as I'm clicking, you're seeing the web map being brought up and all the information. Some of the functionality in here, I've got the ability to export this data out to Excel or Shapefile or a geodatabase, which is always useful. But I've got a report functionality. So in here, I've created 2 reports from the templates. And I've created a singular damage report and a summary report. I can choose how I want to run these reports, whether it's going to be just a single entity, or I can shift click and do multiples here, and you can see the record count increasing. I can choose which report it is I want to run and generate this report. I have generated a couple of others this morning or yesterday just to show you what these look like. So here is the first report, and this is a summary report. So in the summary report, I've got every single structure here that I had selected and what their damage status was by address. And these are pretty simple to create. We'll share some link out to the doc afterwards. And then I've also got a single property report here, just an example. So the level of damage for this property, where it is located, and all the information of it. So this is now a PDF that can be printed out. So it's a great way of extracting data from your data collections. And again, I've just been a little sneaky and added it into the dashboard, but it just makes it very accessible to everybody in one place to manage this. The other thing I did here, I took the analysis tab as well from Survey, used the same trick of the embed and put that in here. So I can now filter this information And I've got some other ways of looking at the data pretty easily. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the Survey123 analysis tabs and the data tabs. So just an easy way of having it all put together. And then lastly, I've got a web version of this. So I just opened up the web version of this form, and yes, it does work. So I can do the same thing. You'll see the addresses change at the bottom here as I click the different properties. So this might not be a damage assessment workflow for this particular one, but knowing that you can use Survey123 Connect and publish this survey with the JavaScript capability, you can now use it for your own processes of point and polygon and pull back information associated with that in the web form. So how did we build all this? How did it work? So that's sort of the next step to take a look at. So I'm going to close down just the Survey123, and I'll bring up Survey123 Connect. So this is just that simple schema, simple form right in here. And let's take a look at the Excel sheet that actually drives this particular form. So it looks a little intimidating right now, but believe me, it's not too bad. And I've actually zipped all this up for you into a folder, and it'll be available for you to download after the webinar. So you can take my example and use that to build out your own workflows. What I have in here is I have 3 hidden fields right in here. I've got the URL. So this is the URL of that layer, of the map layer itself. And we'll go back and take a look at the map. So this is the parcels layer. Then this here is a token. So this is if it's a secured layer and not publicly available, I can pass my credentials through to make sure that I have access to that. And then I have, this is the magic right here, is the JavaScript. So I'm going to say it's a JavaScript function. The JavaScript name is pointandpoly.js. And I'm going to query the features out based upon the location, and the location we're getting from the geopoint. So when we get the geopoint, that gives us the location. And then we're going to use this URL, pass it some credentials, and use a JavaScript to pull the information back. So to show you how this works, I'll unhide this and I'll just change this to a text field right now. This way you'll actually see how things work. So this is updating the survey now to reflect my change from hidden, and you can now see this JSON, which you didn't see before. I use the map and I'll zoom over to my area of interest and just choose a parcel over here randomly. So it's pulled back all of this information using that JavaScript. And what this is a big JSON array right here. Let's see if we can make this a little bit more legible for you. Let me see if I can copy this out. I think I've got a JSON viewer right here. And we can format it. So this is the actual JSON array. Make that a little larger for folks. So it's a object pair values, right? So I've got the object is juris code, and that's an, and I've got a geography, and I've got the address and the street number. So I've got all of these pair values in here. So I can use this now to use the pull data function from that particular element. So I've got all of this, which is being hidden by the hidden functionality in my survey. And this is just so you can see it all, and then we've passed it out. So this is the magic, and it brings it into the object name service data. So now I can use a pull function. We are pulling JSON from service data, which is this guy, and I'm taking attributes dot address. Where did that come from? So the top is attributes dot address, and I'm pulling this value in. Might be a little bit to digest right now, but it's really not too bad once you've done it once and you sort of understand the workflow. I'll explain it really quick one more time to make sure it's all good. I've got the URL here to my parcels layer. and I'm passing it in as URL. That is going to pass a token as well into this, which is the pull data, JavaScript, using the JavaScript itself, and then I'm using the URL parameter and the location parameter that we're getting from the geo point. Then I'm going to pull all the elements from within there in the JSON by attributes.city, attributes.zip-code, and populate these. So that's the crux of it, and I'll show you the JavaScript in a moment. There's a couple of little things in here for best practices that you may not think of to begin with. When I did this pull data to service data, you'll see I've got a huge amount of data. And if I just left this as is, every time I did a collection, it would collect all of this data into my survey, which I don't want. It's just a waste in there. So there's two things in here to do, and I'll move on to the right. There's two key fields in here. One is Esri field type on the bind. If you put that as null, it will not actually post that data to the feature service, which is good because you don't want to collect that every time. The other trick here is because I'm not reading and collecting it, I do need to make sure that the field length is big enough to accommodate that entire chunk of JSON. So I just made the field length 50,000. Why not? I can make it as big as we need to make sure I accommodate all the JSON. If there's more JSON than your field length, it'll be blank. So make it a large value. It's null anyway, so we're not actually collecting it into a feature service. I've done the same with the URL and the token. I don't need to collect that into my surveys. So think about that for anything else that you want in there. The other functionality I showed you in there was the calculate value. So we pulled the building value from that JSON, and we pulled the parcel value anyway. And then we just used a simple if statement right here for if the damage is minor, here's your multiplication. If the damage is moderate, there's the multiplication by 5, and destroyed, etc., goes up to 100%. Again, I'm sharing this with you, so don't have to screenshot this or write it down, and I'll get that to you at the end. Then the actual JavaScript itself is this guy, and so it's basically doing the query, the feature layer, and the mirror magic here is your geometry, your spatial query. Again, I'm not going to sort of step-by-step through JavaScript today, but I'm sharing the script. This is completely usable for any point in Polygon, and you can just pass in the same credentials, utilize this script. Where does it have to, the script have to sit? It has to be within your project. There's a folder here called scripts. It used to be called extensions back when this was beta, but now it's called scripts. And inside here is my point and poly script. That's how it gets referenced. So again, I'm going to share this entire setup with you so you can reuse it and repurpose it for your own use. So the other amazing thing I showed you in here was the web map. So let's take a look at some of the settings in here. How did I accomplish getting a web map into this application? So in settings, we've got some options here. So the first options, this is very important if you're using the JavaScript functionality. Remember, you have to have 3, 10, and above for this to work. If you give someone this survey and they've already got 3, 9 on their phone, they're not going to get the functionality. So this is a useful button to check here. Require update to latest version to use this survey. That'll assure that anyone using it is updated to that. If you're adding images, obviously you can choose an image size in here so you're not sucking up too much space. Style, you can go ahead and brand this. Map is showing the map that I've got linked. So this is where I chose USNG as the format so that it wasn't using decimal degrees or some other format. You can change this to whatever you need. If you need UTM, you can do that. For this example, I just chose USNG. Here's the magic right here is in linked content. So this is the content inside my application that I've linked, and I've just linked a map. So to link a map in here, it's as easy as add a map, search for the map, and link it. And that will actually link this particular map in there. So I linked this map right here, my damage assessment map, right into this survey, and this is all my linked content. The other thing I linked in here was a vector tile package. So by linking a vector tile package in here, I can take my maps offline. So that's the magic to linking a web map into your survey. It's pretty straightforward. Let's take a look at the web map itself. So here's the web map I authored with all the parcels in it. And it's got the damage survey. This is where I did the view visibility levels, the scale dependency on the labels for the parcels and the labels for the teams. So this is the field map and the field version. I then created another version of this that just looks a little different, maybe more suitable for big viewing in an operations center. So this is now available for use in my dashboard, which is the dashboard of this. Just a quick trick here as well, and I'll show you this. This is an easy way to create an offline TPK from the OpenStreetMaps. You can either create a polygon or just use the map extent, and then I can run the task and it'll just output me a TPK which I can upload, and then that can be used as an offline based map in Survey123. You can select your level of details in here. Obviously, the more level of detail, the larger the file is going to be. But this is an easy way to do this, and so we'll share this out as a link at the end of this. The other functionality in the survey was the sent here, and I've got the address put in here for each survey. This makes it easy for the field collector to know where they've been, and do I need to go back? Did I need to go back and do a little bit of editing on any of these and resubmit them? But it's listing it all here by address. And I did that back in Excel under the settings by customizing the instance name. So by customizing the instance name, it gives it a friendly name. If you don't do that, it'll just probably grab the URL of that JSON and put it in there. So customizing the instance name makes it very important. So something that I've been working on and working with the Survey123 team is views and securing your information. We'll share a blog article at the end about this, but this will be how to create views and why to create views. So I'll just bring a document over real quick. So only after you finished your schema do you want to start creating views. But I create a field worker view that has add, update, but no delete on it. I add a stakeholder view, which is created automatically by Survey123 when you click the collaborate button. And that is, I can modify the fields, I can modify, redact fields in there so that no one sees who collected the data, and I can filter it. It's not editable. Then I can create a public view. I've extended the caching, the CDN on that. Again, I can make it non-editable. I can enable download for open data. I can create an internal stakeholder view, and an important one is a QA/QC view that actually does have deletion rights. So we'll take a quick look at those. If I go to my content, and I'm in my survey right here, and we'll just look at the layers. So I've got a master feature service that is shared with absolutely nobody. This is mine and no one else will have access to it. And this is the full feature service that's created when the survey is published. Then I've got my stakeholder, my QA/QC view, my field worker view, and my public view. So for instance, if I look at the details on my public view, this one here, I've labeled it in the summary that has no editing. The CDN is extended to 2 minutes, that's the caching. And it's completely, I've redacted the field collector and some other information from this particular view. And I did that in the visualization tab. And you can come in here, and this is where you define the definitions and you remove the fields and the other information. On the settings, it's important that no one accidentally deletes it. I've got my editing obviously disabled, and I've allowed export data for open data, and I've got my CDN, I've increased that from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. That's just in the event the map goes viral. It'll give a much better user performance to the end user if we cache it. Lastly, on the functionality here that I showed you was some of the reporting functions. So how did we create those? So the report here is a template, and again, I'm sharing this with you at the end. So if some folks here may remember mail merge from the old days of Microsoft Word, this is essentially the same sort of idea. Is I'm referencing my field address, referencing my field city, and referencing my field zip from the data collected in Survey123. And I've got some code in here which gives me the map and the map settings. And again, we'll share some doc with you on this. The one that's a little bit more complicated is the summary version of this. And this one, you'll see it is a little bit more complex to build and create. But again, I'm sharing it with you. We'll share the doc with this as well, but this is a good example of how to do a summary report in there. How do we actually get these into Survey123 to run with? We come into Survey123, and I'm going to click on Report, Manage Templates, and here's where I can upload and edit different templates in here. You can download some examples of these templates, but they're very, very useful for getting your information out of your survey into other consumable formats. I've covered a lot today. Again, this is it's good that it's recorded, and we're going to share a lot of links with you. But please experiment with some of these scripts and see what new capabilities you can come up with for point and polygon, reporting functionalities, and amazingly, the use of that web map. I think that's just a fantastic new tool in the Survey123 available. With that, Jeff, I think I've said enough, and we can go back to you.
Great. No, thanks, John, and yeah, thanks for that magical demo. So, certainly, a lot that you've seen, from John here. I mean, kind of summed up here on the screen. Automating workflows with JavaScript functions, validating data collection and seeing that on the map now, finally with a 3.10 release and configuring reports to meet your needs. As John mentioned, though, there's many resources that we'll share with you in the handouts, and included in some of these, there's a nice long blog post on getting going with JavaScript functions. There's an additional blog post on creating and securing public views of surveys, and another key thing to think about is things from a PII perspective, right? Do you want to limit personal identifiable information in your public views of data, and certainly through the views you can do that. Reports and the OSM tools, that tile package tools that John showed, all of these links will be in the handout. That was the Survey123 section. Next, John was going to share a couple of updates on Experience Builder, and so just a couple of key things to think about here. Obviously we're in an age of mobile tools, and really COVID has driven home the need to have really a mobile first strategy, as John likes to say, in building engaging apps for the public. And so there's a couple of ways to think about doing that with Experience Builder, and some of the tricks that we leveraged even during COVID was to have a single URL for an app, but have two different apps actually designed for a mobile and desktop experience. And then certainly the ability to create and be very creative with layouts and be really kind of inventive in some of the ways that you configure your apps with Experience Builder. So with that, it's back over to John for here just a few minutes to give us some updates from the Experience Builder perspective. So back over to you, John.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So as Jeff mentioned, mobile first now. So I'm just thinking public information maps. How do we give that a mobile first appearance? And I've got two little examples I just put together here. This one is called buttons, and you'll see why in a moment. We've got a traditional public information map here. This has actually been completely recreated. It used to be a web app builder, but I've recreated it inside Experience Builder. And there's all these, your templates still exist that you used in Web App Builder. You can actually leverage those in Experience Builder. But the big takeaway for me in Experience Builder is that you can design a completely separate mobile view apart from this desktop view. So if you remember the desktop view in Web App Builder, when you clicked on things in there, I'm just going to click onto my live view in Experience Builder here. You know, the pop-ups, for instance, were pretty poor on the mobile experience in Web App Builder. They've been much improved in here in Experience Builder. You can see I've got some tabs at the bottom here, so I'm actually using a section element to create some tabs within here, and each one of these tabs is actually a view, and I just sort of put some content in here. So here's my INSEE web of the Bobcat fire, which was in my backyard at the time. But what if I want to view this on my mobile device? So let's take a look up here on mobile. And I was a little confused when I very first tried to do this on what some of the buttons meant. I'll go out of live view. So there's auto and custom. And auto is automatically use the view in the desktop view for a mobile experience. Custom is I want to build my own mobile experience in this particular size. So if I click on live view, I place some buttons in here, and I can look at the fire incident right in here. And I've got a little hamburger, just like you'd expect to use on a phone. To go back, I do have the map. Obviously, you don't need a map in this one if we didn't want to start with. But now I can go and I can link out. So basically, I'm linking out to views or pages within here with a mobile-first approach. So this was it was an aha to me when I realized the power that I had going from auto to custom, and you can build out a completely separate experience for the end users when they're hitting this with a mobile device. And I would probably say that most people on public information now are scanning a QR code or Google searching this and clicking on your app on a phone and not on a laptop sitting at home. So this was really a powerful thing to me. Let's go back to the desktop view. When I first came in here, I got pretty intimidated, actually, to be really honest. I had all of these different elements that I could come in here. Every time I clicked on something, I had all these options on the right, and I wasn't quite sure what they all meant. So it did take me just a little bit to get my head wrapped around what it looks like and how it works. One of the keys for me was understanding the page on the left and the different pages that I have in my view. So this one is a page with a section view in it. And this is my section, and the section has views. So on the right, I created new views. So I've basically got a shelters view, a briefing view, and I've got all these different views here containing embedded content or maps or other information. Then at the bottom, I added a navigation bar. So that was, all the bottom here is, I added a section. I created views in the section. Then I added a navigation bar. You can even change the style of the navigation bar. So I can change it from having the names listed down here to simply dots or a slider or just a next, next, next. And now in live view, you can see I've got the ability just to go next, next, next. So it depends how you want to portray your app. So just fantastic capability in Experience Builder. I'll go back here and just show you the other example that I created. So that was the buttons, and here's another version of the same thing, but it's exactly the same concept. There's one hidden feature in here that I wasn't aware of and it took me a while to find, which is called pending. What is pending? So to me, pending is a parking lot. I'm putting stuff in the parking lot. So in this particular view here, I've got the same idea. I've got the same section with the views underneath it. But in this case, I decided I wanted a slightly different mobile view. So on my mobile view, When I came in here on auto, all the buttons here were the same as the buttons on my desktop. So this minute said home, shelters, briefing, information. And I found when I went to mobile, it cut off at home, shelters, and all the rest were cut off to the right. So I wanted to change the experience in here so that I could just do a next, next, next for this particular view. So the way I accomplished that was I took this particular element and I put it in pending status. So by putting it in pending, I put it in the parking lot. Now it's in the parking lot, I can put a new navigation style in this particular one. So I can add from here, and I can add a new navigation style. And now I've got the ability to style it in my mobile app completely separate from my main app. So maybe I just want buttons in this one for navigation, and now I can navigate by buttons. So I found the pending was really a useful thing to understand. I can put elements in the parking lot for later use. So that was really good. My real takeaway from this here is don't be intimidated by by Experience Builder. You come in here and you've got lots of different things to look at, lots of elements. You don't necessarily understand all the pieces. Every time you click on something, all of this stuff comes up on the right. Don't be intimidated by that. Just get in there and start working a problem. Find yourself an easy problem to look at. So I think public information is one of those that is great. After you've done this, you can actually save these out as a template. So you can generate your own template for your own use in your own organization. Or if there's a group of you that want the same templates, you can create templates, share them through groups, and actually bring templates into your org that someone else has made. So a lot of power in here. Say this isn't an Experience Builder training. We will share some links to some Experience Builder trainings after the fact in the document that Jeff's going to share out with everyone. I just wanted to give you a quick idea of some options and some ideas in Experience Builder. Jeff, again, back to you.
Great. Well, thanks, John, and thanks for sharing your ahas with Experience Builder. And I hope others, come to those same kind of aha moments on how they might be able to use that within their own organization. So just a couple of last things here in closing before we open up for a couple of questions. I wanted to switch gears now and kind of talk about things from a solutions perspective here for emergency management. I think as many of you know, we've been talking about and putting a lot of work through our solutions team in our emergency management operations set of templates, and we've seen the patterns of situational awareness, damage assessment, and public information really play out through the course of many disasters and crisis kind of throughout the year. So that work continues. One side note that I wanted to highlight is the team recently released a YouTube video that just kind of encapsulates this message and this story in 180 seconds. So kudos to Ryan, Madeline, Daniel from our creative lab who worked on this. So maybe something to share with others in your organization about what GIS can do. And this may be something you can share with your family and friends and tell them what you do for a living and help them better understand that. So we wanted to share that with you. I also wanted to, kind of give a shout out to the user community. Again, doing great work, this year. And from our perspective on the Esri side, we feel like, each disaster, kind of validates these, patterns of use from, John Hopkins and Oregon and Louisiana with the hurricanes, or conducting damage assessments after the fires, or sharing information with the public on fires in Oregon, and even just Boulder here this past weekend. Many great examples from across the user community. We've got an examples gallery that's public where we've tried to organize a lot of that work. From the template perspective, there's a couple of additional things that have been new this year from a solution template perspective. There's a response hub template that I mentioned. Flood impact analysis got updated this year. There's a new special events set of templates that came out during the summer. In fact, there's a webinar tomorrow on an update on special events. So that's kind of the what's new part. Some of the things that are coming, kind of the road ahead, there's a November release coming up for solution templates. And there's a couple of key things that are here that are really important. One, there'll be kind of a reorganization of the solution site around all of public safety. So that will launch in the November release. the emergency management solutions that you've come to know and love will be a part of that. The other key thing to emphasize here is there's going to be a new delivery method for the emergency management content coming up in the next release, and that's the ArcGIS Solutions app. So what that means is you no longer need desktop to deploy these solutions and get started with that. No longer needing that ArcGIS Pro add-in, that you can do that completely from the web. So we're certainly, very excited for that new thing to come out here in the November release. Finally, looking into next year, making updates for damage assessment and debris reporting. That's really just around the response, phase as a part of all of this, but there are many, different solution templates that are out there for all phases of emergency management. So we hope that you kind of explore not only these templates, but, the Esri technology updates, that have come out this year, and think about how can you support some of the different, mission needs within your, organization. As we mentioned, there's been a ton of great materials from the user conference this year. So in the handouts, we'll share with you some of the additional sessions that we think are relevant, and there's a lot that you can research on, learn more about Experience Builder, as John mentioned, Hub, some of the other technology right now that are on the preceding site. Some of the content's already making its way to YouTube right now, and additional materials will be added there. In addition, some of the content will be added to our training site, as well as look for future communication on a public safety dedicated user conference set of materials from Val and Brenda and the team coming to your inbox here shortly on some of these materials. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to questions. So we want to just kind of highlight some of the questions that have come in while folks have been presenting. And John, a couple of questions here for you. So the first question is, can I share my Survey123 form with JavaScript functions publicly? Can I do this without requiring credentials? So maybe John, if you can help us answer that.
Yeah, actually from a security perspective and allowing someone to actually run JavaScript in your organization, that's actually functionality has been disabled. Just because it can potentially put some security impact on your organization by having JavaScript there. So no, you do need to authenticate to actually execute the JavaScript in Survey123.
Okay, no, great. No, thanks, John. And a follow-up question on that. So with the new kind of map linking that you showed, is that something that you can share in public Survey123 apps? Can you have a web map or additional content in your publicly shared surveys?
Yeah, there's no limitation to that. You can share that out. You can use a web map and embed it in your survey. It's only just the execution of JavaScript that can cause some security concerns. But the web maps, absolutely. If the web map's public and it's embedded in and you add the links content, you can do that.
Awesome. No, thank you. And then I guess the last question again is along the kind of disconnected route. So how do the JavaScript functions work if you're in a disconnected environment? Do you have access to that, or how does that work?
No, actually, you do not have the JavaScript functionality there, but there's a workflow and a workaround if you need to do this. You can actually use webhooks to do this. So rather than doing it real time in JavaScript and executing that script to do the point and polygon, if you executed a webhook and did this on the back end, and someone was collecting all their data and collecting it locally to their device, when they submitted all those surveys, it would execute the webhooks, have the webhook do the point and polygon for you, and that would execute it. So there's a way of doing it. It's just not the way that I showed you today.
Oh, great. No, that's helpful, John. So I think that those were the main questions. I guess, John, any last comments to share with the group in closing before we end for today?
I think the really important one is if you're going to use the JavaScript, make sure you check that button down, upgrade to the latest version to use this survey. If you forget to do that, and it should be on by default, but if you forget that, people may not have the functionality in there. So that's the one for Survey123 that my takeaway. And then the takeaway for Experience Builder is, yes, there's a lot. Go through a couple of the demos, go through a couple of the trainings, and then make a commitment to dive in and choose a fairly simple workflow. The challenge, I think, is to use something simple like a public information map and just go through the different navigation techniques and options of how you can build things. But it's going to be, as parity gets more and more, and we add more and more widgets to Experience Builder, it's going to get more and more powerful. So I'll challenge you to start using it right now. So as those new functions and capabilities get brought into Experience Builder, you've already got your head wrapped around what it is in the concept of Experience Builder.
No, that's great. No, great advice, and yeah, I think just a table widget for Experience Builder just came out in the recent update, over the weekend. So
Yep.
yeah, no, thanks, John, for all your demos and answering those questions. And with that, we'll close it out today. Thank you for joining us on behalf of John and myself and the Esri Public Safety team. We hope you have a great and quiet rest of the year and can rest up and get ready for next year. So with that, that's our last session of the year. Thank you again for joining us. Good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.